So, how are we going to do our research? Are we going to do it in a laboratory? Or are we going to do it out in the field? And laboratory research is generally expected to be basic research and field research applied research, but that's not always true. Laboratory research allows the researcher to conduct in a controlled setting and to control the variables more than field research. And so it has had some criticism that says that, gee, laboratory research is too artificial to get realistic results. But that's not necessarily true, as we're going to see in a minute. Field research is a more natural environment, and the expectation is that the results would much more closely mirror reality. But when you're looking at these two, don't discount laboratory research because it's contributed greatly to our knowledge. And the next slide will probably help you understand that a little bit better. But think about many of the great experiments that you've heard about and read about in psychology, and many of those were conducted in laboratories. So up until now, you've probably already known all the terms that we've talked about, but these may be new ones to you. Mundane realism is the extent to which an activity or the entire study itself is similar to an activity or process one would complete in day-to-day life. So how close that research mirrors real life. And experimental realism is the extent that an experimental situation is realistic, whether it's in a field experiment or in a laboratory. So in other words, do the participants take it seriously? Does it have an impact on them, and are they involved in the procedures? Is it something that they're really taking in the same attitude as if it was real life? That didn't make sense, but you understand what I'm saying. Was it something that they took serious and was immersed in? And there's many experts who feel like experimental realism is a study, is much more important to a study than where it takes place. If you think about some of the major studies of our time, they took place in laboratories, but because the participants were involved in the study and took it seriously, we were able to gain some extremely valid research data. So, if nothing else, use Masters and Johnson's research in the 50s and 60s for an example. They recorded some of the first laboratory data on the anatomy and physiology of human sexual response. And they based that on the direct observation of 382 men and 300 women and 312 men in an estimated 10,000 cycles of sexual response. I didn't understand the difference in the number of women and men, but anyway. But this took place at first in a private research university and then at a nonprofit institute that they founded. So definitely laboratory settings, but that is still, when you study psychology and human sexuality, that data is still some of the backbone of what we study. So it's considered very valid. And then, we've talked earlier about Milgram's experiment. You saw the video clip over it a couple of weeks ago, and that's not something that you could probably set up as a field research. Well, at least I hope you couldn't really just go around and get people to zap other people with electrical currents because you told them to. But you never know. So both types of research have their place, and which type is better would depend on basically on the situations. So I'm going to stop here and we're going to come back and talk about qualitative and quantitative research and what the difference is between those.